Hi, I'm Huck, and I know you've waited a while for this video, but I'm going to ask you to please wait just a few more seconds while the intro runs. Trust me, it's for your own good. I'm sorry. I had intended to post something much sooner, and I do have 3 other videos in various stages of production, not quite ready yet. But then I got to thinking, all this patient waiting may just be a healthy exercise some of us need right now, a few months before the upcoming U.S. midterm elections. By that I mean, I fear the impatience and frustration that some people are feeling right now may put us on the verge of making a big mistake this November. And I don't know about you, but I for one am getting pretty damn tired of getting screwed over like the backside of a prison whore every few years just because some folks won't take the time to understand what's really been going on in this country. It just seems with all that big special interest money floating around Washington, we don't really see rapid change on anything anymore. The best you can hope for is that kind of kissing your sister letdown you feel when a great idea weaves its way through the legislative process, and if it becomes a law at all, well, it merely nips at the heels of the problem. And yes, we should be pissed about that. But then again, a little progress is better than none at all, and it's certainly better than going backwards. I don't need to tell you things are bad, but the truth is, who we elect in November is going to make a difference on whether things get a little better, or maybe a lot worse. So for those Democrats and independents out there who are growing more and more frustrated as we see this slow rate of progress, this is mainly for you. But first, let me address my friends out there who may be Republicans or proud members of the Tea Party movement. Well, this is going to feel a lot like a spanking. So you may just want to leave your comment now, about what a Kool-Aid drinking liberal socialist son of a bitch I am. And save yourself any further aggravation. There are reasons why the Republican Party has shrunk in recent years, Sarah Palin being just one extraordinary example. The problem, it seems to me, is that Republicans have become far too conservative. Maybe by listening to all this rhetoric coming out of the mouths of some entertaining but lunatic personalities. Sean Hannity, Glenn Beck, Rush Limbaugh. This is how lemmings march themselves off the cliff, by paying far too much attention to the asshole leading them, rather than to get out of line and look around for themselves once in a while. And while I certainly can sympathize with Tea Party members who are outraged over the huge deficits we're facing these days, someone needs to inform you that your anger is misdirected at Democrats. After all, it was 2 conservative Republicans, Ronald Reagan and George W. Bush, who ran up by far the largest deficits in our history. Reagan tripled the deficit to $2.8 trillion, and George W. Bush, well, he set an all-time record. He managed to run up more debt in 8 years than all of the presidents preceding him, 229 years combined. But while these Tea Party members have their rage up, let me just challenge them on a couple of their base beliefs. You folks seem to want government to get out of the way. Maybe you don't remember those 11 lives lost out on that oil rig in the Gulf because the 5th richest company in the world chose to ignore a law that mandated they shut down their operations when they detected a leak. They chose to keep drilling because apparently a few thousand barrels of oil were more important than the lives of those who worked for them. Or maybe you don't recall all those mine workers killed in West Virginia not long ago, when the company they worked for chose to use every legal maneuver at their disposal to get around some regulatory citations they received when methane gas was detected in the very work environment these men were in when they died. And I guess you must not have been affected by all those sudden interest rate hikes and outrageous fees charged by some of the largest banks in this country on customers who had never missed or been late with a payment. And I wonder what you think of all those folks with the multi-million-dollar bonuses out on Wall Street. You know the ones that were selling mortgage derivatives doomed to failure and yet betting their own personal income against those same derivatives. They got rich, folks lost their homes. And I wonder if you folks have ever tried to figure out how to make it on $10 an hour when your job, making anything, was shipped to China. So I wonder, where is all the Tea Party outrage at the folks in their multi-million-dollar salaries who made these decisions? I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just me. But common sense would suggest that after the unprecedented mess George W. Bush and his conservative friends left us just 18 months ago, no one in their right mind would even consider electing another Republican to high office anytime soon, if ever. Now, as the minority party in Congress, Republicans have made their intentions very clear: to not fix anything. Instead, they're choosing to paint Obama as a complete failure. Only by sabotaging every good idea that comes along can they ever hope to return to power. The fact is, when President Obama took office 18 months ago, we were on the precipice of the Second Great Depression. And mind you, it took 13 years to climb out of the first one. Under President Bush, we watched as in just a few short months, 8 million jobs were lost. Tens of trillions of dollars, almost a third of this nation's net worth, were lost in a matter of days in stocks, property value, pensions, investment income. Bush runs up nearly $9 trillion in debt, gets us involved in a fiasco in Iraq, and drops the ball completely in Afghanistan, and earns worldwide scorn from our allies around the world. Yeah, and so you're thinking after 18 months, hey, let's put those guys back in charge. The truth is, all of our troubles were not caused by some Wall Street scheme 2 years ago. That Wall Street meltdown was nothing more than the inevitable cliff's edge we allowed ourselves to be led to. The truth is, our economic problems in this country started 30 years ago under President Ronald Reagan, and it's going to take a while to resolve them all. But folks don't want to hear that. They want their solutions like they get their entertainment. Click of the mouse, bam, there it is. I love the irony that Republicans use in some of their favorite terms, like liberal elite, as if the poor and those who championed them ever felt superior to anyone. I don't know about you, but I don't know anyone in my tax bracket who has a country club membership. And I don't know anybody who eats at $100 a plate restaurants so they don't have to be bothered by the likes of, well, me. You just got to admire Republicans for their craftiness in twisting things around. Pull the plug on grandma when we pass a health care reform bill, when all along the conservative agenda is to do away with Medicare altogether. But the line I most admire is this whole idea that Republicans are blaming Democrats for a redistribution of wealth from the rich to the poor. The fact is, over the last 36 years, the rich have been hoarding in record profits, while the middle class in this country has virtually disappeared. What we've seen ever since Ronald Reagan is the transfer of wealth from the poor and middle class of this country to the rich. The richest 1% in America own 37% of all income. That's the highest in 117 years. It's this inequality of wealth between the rich and the poor that was the cause of the Great Depression in the 1930s. Now, I'm a believer in capitalism, but just like freedom itself, total, absolute capitalism is a very dangerous thing, just like total freedom would be a dangerous thing. In a society with total freedom, you could marry your 6-year-old neighbor. You could shoot the paperboy for not delivering in the morning. You could drive your car 80 miles an hour through the schoolyard. In the same way, we know that capitalism, without some sensible controls and rules and regulations, can wreak havoc on customers, on the workforce, on the environment. But as the Republican Party has gotten more and more conservative, they seem to suggest now that capitalism is best in its purest form possible. Let the largest and richest businesses have their own way, and all that success will trickle down to the rest of us. But it never has. We only climbed out of the Great Depression when steps were taken by our government to close this wide gap between the rich and the poor. We did this through the GI Bill and educating our workforce. We did it by creating government jobs, by forming unions to strengthen workers' ability to negotiate with their large successful companies. And we did it by taxing the rich and forcing them to share a portion of their wealth with those who help them earn it. It was Democrats who favored unions. It was Democrats who championed antitrust legislation to force large businesses to have to compete with smaller ones. In short, it's always been Democrats who have been a thorn in the side of the rich and forced them to play fair. But these powerful folks with all their money and influence like the way things have gone for the last 30 years, and they'll stop at nothing to see to it that nothing changes. All this talk you hear about Democrats preaching socialism is really just Republicans saying, we don't want no stinking rules. Conservatives hate rules. Companies don't think twice about shutting down their operations in this country, throwing thousands of people out of work so they can go over to Indonesia and make a bigger profit. Big companies have been gobbling up smaller companies or merging with other big companies to eliminate their competition. Now, antitrust legislation has been undermined by conservatives in Congress over the years, and many of the rules and regulations that do remain in place have become meaningless because Congress has found ways to underfund the regulatory agencies, and there's no folks to do the actual regulating. When you hear Republicans talk about big government, what they're really saying is, we don't want no stinking rules or anyone that can enforce them. Businesses are left with a sort of honor system of self-regulation. We've seen the result of that on Wall Street, in the Gulf, on your credit card statement. But disgruntled voters this fall will go to the polls upset that President Obama and Democrats in Congress haven't done enough to totally turn this economy around. Republicans are hoping that our impatience will put them right back in the driver's seat. Well, I say, don't let conservatives scare you with all their talk of gays, gun laws, and socialism. The truth is, they don't really care that much about those issues anyway. It's all about the money. It always is. Now, I want you to feel free to voice your opinion. I really welcome your comments or video responses to this subject. And I promise to go back to making my usual videos about things we can all laugh about. Anyway, I'm Huck. Thanks for watching. Until next time.